Don't just take the referrals, call them, really understand the relationship between that person that you're essentially giving your money away to and the person who's giving the referral. The other thing in vetting is make sure that the person that you're doing business with is honorable, that they're actually paying their purveyors, their vendors. Even call the contractors that he's done business with in the past. Lesson learned is measure twice, cut once. Do all the due diligence beforehand, not in the throes of it. Tell me about your failure. We can all learn from somebody's success or get excited about that, but I learn more from people's failures. What was the aha moment that you took away, and how are you going to apply that into what we're doing?
Well, we all tend to want to do things quickly, with
Mhm.
low friction, and we don't want to spend the extra time ourselves or pay somebody or put the money in. It's just we want to get in on that deal. It's human nature.
It is.
That's our tendency, and we need to hear these stories if we haven't experienced it. We need to hear these stories to put that caution, that red flag out. There's always the urgency. Well, you need to get in on this deal now. It's closing soon. And it's like,
Yes,
right?
David.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And,
that
and
definitely was it. He said, it had to be for accredited investors. And there was no subscription agreement at all. There was a
mm,
blurb in the offering, a very poorly written offering done by a well-known attorney firm in Michigan. But the gentleman, the attorney that wrote the offering, was not in any way, shape, or form qualified to do any type of PPM, private placement memorandum, for your audience that may not know that. And so that was one unfortunate part. It was just poorly written. And PPMs aren't written for your favor.
no, never.
No, they're always written on their favor. And it was poorly done. Not having a lot of experience in a syndication before, I took it at face value, as did the rest of the investors, some of them very seasoned businessmen, I might add.
Because it was written by a licensed attorney.
Thank
So
you.
you think
Exactly.
so we, but in reality, attorneys have all kinds of specializations, as do doctors, for example, and have areas of expertise.
Sure.
And you can't serve the entire audience of legal work. You just can't. You've got
No.
to have expertise. So here's an attorney who he paid a few dollars to, because he did it probably on the cheap,
Mhm.
and got this thing that he can now take to the subscribers, the investors, and say, hey, it's been documented here, it's signed, sealed by the attorney. It's got to be good. It's got to be good. And
Yeah.
there you go.
And there you go. And there it went. So we all signed it, wired our funds. He did set it up correctly. I set it up correctly, that there would be a separate escrow agent and there would be a watchdog over this gentleman on spending. He paid himself a handsome salary and dragged this thing out. That's one way he was able to filter, or I don't want to say embezzle, that's a strong word, but he was able to skim off the top, so to say, some of the funds. I guess in vetting further in the next uh, investment that I get into, is asking for referrals. Who have you done business with before? And don't just take the referrals, call them. A lot of people go, well, he gave up a referral, so obviously he was comfortable doing that. It may be his brother. It may be somebody who's really understand the relationship between that person that you're essentially giving your money away to, and the person who's giving the referral. And what was sort of a thing for me, David, was, if this guy's such a well-known developer, why is he going to a local RIA, Real Estate Investors Association meeting, in order to raise
Raises
capital?
capital. Yeah, yeah,
And I
yes.
did ask him that. That was a qualifying question, because I, again, had no interest in getting involved. And he said he wanted, this was, of course, something that is near and dear to me. He wanted the social aspect and the connection and helping individuals who may not be able to get in on other investments. You're nodding, and probably people can't see this, but David's nodding. Yeah, it showed that camaraderie, that contribution, that kumbaya, which is a huge thing for me. And he definitely knew how to read the room, and he played that so well to his benefit.
They know the keywords to use.
They do.
It will obviate any of our initial concerns. They've already got the comeback. They've already got exactly, and they know people that manipulate others are just good at doing it, unfortunately. And then that becomes kind of their the way they run their life. Unfortunately, they learn, I can do this and I can get myself make money or get myself out of a hole by using other people, because I just became good at that in life. Um, you said that had you talked to referrals, or looking back at some of his resume of the other developments he claimed to have done, again, trying to find some of those people that he listed, that I did it with so-and-so, and you could either Google it or you couldn't Google it, but if you could call people and actually you could probably find some of those people if they were actually listed with part of the development, and the other ones, but this was all after the fact. You start doing your looking, your vetting, so to speak, after the fact, when things were start to go awry. Now, wait a minute, what's right? So on the front end, you probably could pick some of these things up, but on the back end, this is what you found. So getting the property back, you had to go through litigation, I assume?
We did not.
Did not. Okay.
There were two things that happened in this, and after he got called out, and he was very good at stringing it along for another year. And unfortunately, because I believed the gentleman, I kind of was an accomplice, or so it felt, because other investors are like, something's not right. And like, no, this is just how he rolls. And meanwhile, skimming more money off the top and then not paying people. And so that was the other thing in vetting, is make sure that the person that you're doing business with is honorable, that they're actually paying their purveyors, their vendors. I would probably go as far the next time, David, is to even call the contractors that he's done business with in the past. If you did this development, who did you use to do the vertical? Who did you do for the horizontal? Who did you use? And then call those people. Was he forthright? Did he pay on time? As we got further into the development, he wasn't paying key people, and he was spending more money than he should have. And we went well over, like embarrassingly over budget. And he clearly just had no idea of what he was doing. And so that go spend money and time vetting the individual, or individuals as it were, to make sure that this is legit.
So with this experience that you as investors had with this person, then if there's no litigation, is there nothing that goes on his resume or on a record that someone else could find because of this? Is there nothing that you can do there that would actually warn other people that would show up?
So here's how we wound up, and this is the short version, because I do a lot of trust work. I teach a trust class. And I knew that there was some securities violations in here. His second round of money that he brought in didn't adhere to the PPM at all. He didn't follow through on half the things that were on the PPM. So there were some securities issues that could have been brought up, but more importantly was trust fraud. And I was a friend of the trustee at the time. And I made it abundantly clear that what he's doing is, because he was kind of going around the back door of having this property possibly deeded over to him, right? Because all the trustee had to do, because he was the grantor and she was the trustee, and he's super believable. There was the fear that he would deed that over, but there was some information that I wrote into the trust that could have prevented that. And it could have been possible trust fraud. And that's not just a slap on the wrist when you're dealing with a large sum of money. And this gentleman was also a beneficiary, so he was doing it to his own betterment. I had several strong conversations with him and encouraged him that it would probably be better for him to deed the property over instead of face possible securities violation or trust fraud. And it didn't go down with one conversation. It went down with many, and he finally acquiesced and signed it over. But this is after all of the money was gone. And now and we're in the process of trying to sell the property. We'll take probably a bath on the whole thing, but lesson learned is Measure twice, cut once, do all the due diligence beforehand, not in the throes of it. And it could have gone really, really sideways. Had he dug his heels in, then we would have had to litigate. And the only people that really make any money in
Yes,
litigations are
that's the
attorneys. And
problem.
we have friends.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really great. So let's kind of wrap this up. But I would
Sure.
say, I love that you're willing to have this conversation to show the world, to show, my listeners, because I've got a lot of hardworking, high income people that look at different kinds of investments outside of Wall Street. And
Mhm.
as I talk to many doctors and dentists, many will say, well, I'm doing really well right now. I put my money in XYZ syndication, XYZ, this or that. And I said, interesting. I said, how did you come across that? I'm just always
Yeah.
curious what the connections are. Well, went to a conference somewhere. Now, again, I'm not judging
No.
anybody or anything, but my question is, how did you know, or how do you know today that that is a solid investment? Well, so far, it's good. Well, great. I'm happy to hear that. But, again, was any due diligence done? Nope. We went into a room and seemed like this person had a great presence and had a reputation. Well, of course, it's their conference in this case, or sponsors showcasing them. So everybody was around lauding the great run rate and track record on a similar basis that you had with the person that you ventured with. And you can't just go on that. People don't know, well, where do I go? Well, you start by Googling, you start by doing the research. And if you can't do it yourself, hire it out. I mean, you can hire that
Absolutely.
out for not a whole lot of money to just do some of this basic research to see
Mhm.
what's uncovered. And then I'm not looking for people that have no glitches on their resume. There can be legitimate stories that people can.
I want glitches. I don't
Yeah, I
want
want to see some
a
more
fairy
stories.
tale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm happy to go and say, but what I always do, what we do, is we require a basic application, and part of that application is just tell us your story. What are we going to find? What are we going to find, right? And then be forefront, because then we go and look, and if some of those things come up, then at least we go, okay, great. Now let's talk about the story. But if you leave something significant off, like you should have remembered that one, I got a problem. I got a
Yeah.
problem. Incidental things, sure. I got a DWI, 15 years ago when I was 37 years old, or 27. Okay, nothing since. That's not what I'm looking for.
No,
Right?
no, even the bankruptcy that
Even the
showed up on it,
bankruptcies. No, yeah,
it doesn't matter.
no, it
Right.
doesn't. It doesn't. So I want people to understand that we're not looking for someone who has a clean record, because they probably haven't done anything in life at all. So you don't want those people. They're the newbies that they're going to take your money with good intentions and not do anything. But we're looking for people that show up and they have some kind of a classic stream of not following through. Maybe that's a good way to put it. Not following through, and that's who you definitely don't want to get into bed with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Even when I did ask this person, tell me about your failure. We can all learn from somebody's success or get excited about that. But I learn more from people's failures when I ask them. And that opens a wound for some people. And it's not to throw salt in that wound, but just to sort of, hey, excavate this. I need to know, unpack it a little bit. What was the aha moment that you took away, and how are you going to apply that into what we're doing? Boy, answer right off the cuff. I mean, there was no hesitation. It was really open and free. It was probably all nonsense, but he was so good at what he did
Mhm.
that it was so polished. So if they're super polished, run. It's not
Not a good
not
sign.
anything. Not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do have, to our advantage, and I use this sometimes, Darley, because again, we've been in this arena for 40 years, each of us, and that means we've collected a lot of names on our Rolodex. Well, the old
Mhm.
Rolodex. Today it's digital, and oftentimes people will come to me, or kind of Freedom Founders as overall, and hey, David, I think I'm somebody you want to know. Okay, I'm and it's like, so my first response back, and it's not even from me, it's from my assistant, Lindsay. She responds back and says, David says, great. Who do you know that David also knows?
Yes.
Because not that I'm everything to everybody, but you ought to be 2 or 3 connections away from me, 2 or 3 connections away from you, Darlene. And if you can't tie the dots together, I don't think we have anything to talk about. You should be able to connect me to somebody, and then that's a starting point. That's a starting point for me to go. But if you can't do that, I don't think we're talking the same language here.
Boy, David, that is so good. And the other point before we wrap up is if this is a person you really want to get involved with in an investment or in a relationship for that matter, introduce them to your friend or business associate. And I have to give props to my business partner, Lisa, and friend, that she called it the minute she met him. She said, I have no idea what you see in this person. She walked out of a room because he was pitching a business opportunity to the both of us. And she literally, disrespectfully, I might add, got up and walked out of the room. And I was taken back. And I said, that was so disrespectful. She goes, I could tell when he got out of the car that this was trouble. So don't be afraid to have someone sit down and vet the individual. And if they don't want to do that, or they're hesitant, or, no, I don't have time for that. You need to get involved now. I'm closing this window of opportunity. Close it, move on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A third party who is not already emotionally invested in the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because once we get sucked in, and I say again, we all do get sucked in. You need someone else to look at it who's not an investor, not a potential investor, who can look at it objectively and bring out those signs that we often can miss because we're so excited about the opportunity at hand. Well, Darlene, great conversation. Thank you so much for your wisdom and just sharing. I know you have so many wins in the win column, but thanks for sharing the one that was one here that was a troublesome spot, because as you said, we learn more from the failures or things that didn't go as planned than we do from the successes. And I thank you for that.
Absolutely. Part of my book, part of my new book coming out. And again, I loved your book. I'm going to go back and read the other one I missed somehow. Great author, great job, great community that you have for your people. Super excited about.
Thank you. What's the title of your book? Just so we know.
I haven't decided yet. I think Build the Ark Before the Flood might be, or Cover Your Assets, kind of a play on words. But taking that whole experience and the Dead Bob experience, which I think I shared in the mastermind that we were in. This kind of had the Dead Bob vibe about it, but I think we're going to take those experiences and say, this is how to not do that again.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darlene. Great to talk to you.
David. Nice talking to you too.
If you enjoyed watching or learning from this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. If you have a question about any of my content or this specific video, just please leave a comment down below. And as always, stay focused on your freedom. I'll see you next time.